Welcome back to another episode of Wisdom Rising. I'm excited. We're doing something a little bit different these Fridays. We're doing a series of interviews for our Moon Rising Shamanic Institute team. And today I'll be interviewing one of my favorite peoples in the whole world, Shantel Ochoa, because we want you to really know who we are, what our story is, so that we can connect with you on a more personal, deeper, emotionally and energetic levels. So, welcome to the show, Chantel. Thanks for coming on and letting me interview you.
Thank you. I love this. I think it's really important that we're doing this so people can get to know us on a deeper level, on a more personal level, connect to us on that in that way. So I think this is a great idea that we're putting forward.
Yeah, I'm excited. Well, and I feel like every time we share our stories, new little pieces come out. Like, I feel like if you would have heard an interview of this 3 years ago, it would have been very different. And, or even last year, like, I feel like as we work on ourselves and our healing journeys and continue to do the work, like, we have our own aha moments of how they get to unfold. And so it's really a beautiful practice to keep rechecking in on where we are today and where the story is at, right? But I want to
Yes,
I
we're
want to
ever
go
evolving.
we're ever evolving.
Yeah.
Exactly. So I'd love to go back to the beginning of what your story is. Like where's the beginning for you? What does that look like? And just kind of kick us off.
Well, it feels like so many years ago, like lifetimes ago. Okay, so my spiritual journey actually started when I was a child. My father was in an accident when I was 4 in a motorcycle accident, and he um, transitioned. And so in that moment, I realized at a very young age that life wasn't safe and that there was different elements to our world. And so I was able to connect with him in spirit, or I always felt I was in connection with him in spirit. And so from that point on, I wasn't quote unquote asleep. And so I just always knew there was different things and energy and stuff around me. And then as I grew up and went through being a trauma child and a wounded child and all of that, and going through my experiences of what that looked like and how to emotionally process my emotions, which I was really poor at for a very, very long time. So
Mhm.
from that, just walking that journey, and then later my son was in an accident 11 years ago and he transitioned, and so as a grieving mother I went through the process then of really walking through what death meant, what our purpose here in life is. um, just kind of go ahead. I don't know if you have questions, but
I
I'm like,
I do. I think part of it is like what I caught is that early on it was hard for you to process emotions, and then you
yeah.
had this huge tragic event where what I know is that really is where you started processing emotions. You were on the path of learning how to process grief. Was that the turning point of like, okay, I had anger, I had these emotions, and I stuffed them down, and now I have to do the work.
I had to. Yeah, I did. And so when I started realizing what grief really looked like and what it meant and how it is just a transitioning point for us as well, it's an opportunity of healing because it really like strips us away. And so I started learning how to go through my process of emotions and how to communicate differently and to show up differently. So, as that was happening, then I was then diagnosed with an autoimmune, which got me to the point of Reiki and how I became an energy healer and went from my career as a sign language interpreter for 24 years into being a practitioner and a teacher of energy healing and Reiki and a shamanic practitioner, and brought me to you and everywhere we are right now. So it's been a lot of trauma moments, but it's been the alchemist of my walk and how I've been changing. So the catalyst to help me to alchemize my own self.
Well, and I think I recognize this in all of our team members' stories, like really heavy trauma. We get an autoimmune. we do the healing work, we are healed, we reverse that autoimmune, and then we go teach other people. Like that,
It totally is.
that's the common thread of everyone at the Moon Rising Shamanic Institute team. But I'd love to dive in a little bit deeper in that.
Yes.
Like I would love to know how it went from, like, where did it go from, okay, I'm working on healing my emotions, and where was the connection to your grief? Where was the connection to the autoimmune, and how it showed up in your world and in your body with the emotions that you were trying to alchemize?
It wasn't until I was diagnosed with MS that is when everything really came, like all the full picture really started coming together. And that's when I really surrendered to, I can't do this my way. I have to follow divine intervention. I have to follow my soul guidance. And I think because I was walking such a grief driven, and I didn't realize that. I can say that now. Then I was just kind of on my own. I was in survival mode. I just felt like I needed to always be on top of everything and in control, and it's like all of that. And so what happened was is when I was going through the healing of being diagnosed, which I can say I'm 5 years out and I've been symptomatic for free for 5 years. So I'm like, I claim that I have healed this because I've done all of the work within myself. And so it really is me recognizing that I was a grieving child that stuffed down a lot of emotions and didn't know how to process it. I didn't know what it looked like to process it. And I didn't have the example of healed adults in my world, really to say, okay, that is an example that I can pull on. So for me, it was just surrendering to it and really doing the work from there. What did it look like to be a conscious griever? What did it look like to walk a healing path, to change my diet, to change my mindset, to release my limiting beliefs, any conditionings that I had in the past, and to just change who I was. Like who I am today is a completely different version of myself than I was 5, 6 years ago.
Right. Right. And
It's
so
just crazy.
I'm wondering if there was a specific practice that you kind of latched onto. What was like that healing tool that you were using to process the emotions? Was it just allowing yourself to feel it? Like what was that like, and how did your how did your symptoms of MS start to be redefined? And like I'd love for you to talk about that, and also your identity, because I know for you that's a huge piece of the healing MS part.
Mhm. So through that process, what I did is I learned to identify with healing and what being a healed person looks like versus being a sick and diseased person looks like. And so once I recognized that there's a two like timelines, so to speak, two ways of energetically connecting to a diagnosis or an illness is when you connect to the conscious level of healing and health, you walk that walk. You become that, you embody that. So like I said, you eat different, you exercise differently, you move your body differently, your emotions, your thoughts, your processes are completely different versus when you are connecting to what illness and diagnoses and all of that is. You tend to be more giving away your power to the doctor. You give it away to what the prognosis is, and if you're told, hey, you have a disease that will never be healed, it's incurable, and you accept that as your truth, then that literally becomes your truth. So everything in your body is going to respond to, I will never be healed, therefore I have to deplete and just start to disintegrate as a body, as a person, versus no, I take my power back from that, and that's not my story. So since I claimed that was not my story, I had to create a new story for myself, and that was to heal myself, which also became like me connecting to other people. And I think that's where my heart opened up in a different way, and I was more compassionate to other people's stories and connecting to them. And I was relatable to them because I've gone through so much that it wasn't like they were coming to me for healing. And I'm like, oh, I've never experienced that. It was like, yep, been there. Let's work on this. And so really being able to be open to people and their stories and then mentoring them, it just helped to reshape who I was and who I am.
Yeah, it's kind of a bit of empathetic training from divine, right?
Yeah, right.
I've been there. I've done that dished out. Here's your empathy training 101, right? And
Yes.
so you're in the process of like really owning your healing journey, your healing story, you're feeling empowered in that process. You're working through the emotions of grief of losing your son. And when did Reiki show up for you?
Right after the diagnosis. So there's about so I'm going on 11 years, so 5 years, like a 9 year distant difference between my son and MS. And so in that space of time, I was learning how to be a conscious griever, which is a completely different way of grieving than the traditional way of grieving. So, with that, it's moving through our chakra system and going from just being completely in shock and shut down, which starts in our heart chakra, and then moving through all of them systematically, but knowing there's a flow, okay? But in the end of it, you come out in your solar plexus and you're able to step back into your power as a person on this planet that still has a mission and purpose, and we still have life to live. And go ahead.
I want you to walk me through it. I want you to dive in. I want you to give me the details of like, here's a strategy that you used to heal grief. And here's the step-by-step method because you've mastered it. And I know you have helped numerous others, clients and students do the same. And I want you to share that with our audience.
Okay. Okay. So when you first are initially, and this came to me through my own guidance and a huge download at 7 years that I actually lived through this process. So when we initially have a loss in our family, our loved one, our husband, a child, right? We go through this whole physical shock. Our everything shuts down. Our nervous system shuts down, and so that is when we're in our heart. Our heart breaks. We literally have a heartbreak that occurs, an energetic heartbreak, a physical heartbreak, and for me, I felt like I died in that moment with my son. And so, but yet I'm still living. So I went into my heart. And then from my heart, then it goes into, for me, it was then my sacral because it was my mother's wound. Now I'm like a grieving mother. This is my child. And all of the identities and expectations and plans that I had for my son, for myself, he was only 16. So it was like, who is he going to marry? Who is he going to become? So all of those future plans were done. And then as a mom, there was a lot of guilt and a lot of blame. Like, could I have stopped it? Could I have saved him? And it wasn't anything I could have done any different. So from sacral, then it goes into root. And root is now you're creating a new foundation for yourself. Now, if it's you're a wife or a husband and you lost your spouse, a lot of times you lose an income, right? So now there's this income base, like, can I survive on one income? Can I pay all my bills and keep my house? Can I support my family? If it's like for me as a mother, it was a foundation now as a mom. Now I went from 3 kids to 2 kids. So how do I identify myself with still having 3 children, but I only have 2 living children, right? So that's re-identifying that. When do I speak of my son? When do I hold back? And do I hold back kind of thing? So it's this whole re-identity as a mother to still honor him in my life. So then from there, it's throat. Now you're speaking from your new truth. How did the person transition? How did they die? How did you feel? All of those things. And within that throat chakra, there's a lot of truth that comes out of that. Because what I find is a lot of times is we tend to victimize the dead by how they died. So we'll be like, oh my gosh, this happened. Like my son, he was in an accident. Okay, so then we're going to speak about the way they died in a way that victimizes them but that also victimizes ourselves because we can't release it. Death, there's never really glory in death, right? I mean, it's always going to be a tragic way of going, but we can look at it in a different way. But the way we speak of it and we use our throat chakra and speak our truth shows up. So there's this balancing, this new way of speaking of our truth. And from there, it goes into the third eye. The third eye, then you start to have a different awareness because now there's some healing that has come through. When you start getting into your third eye, you start to look at grief and death in a different way. You start having that bigger picture, but not quite the biggest picture yet, but you're starting to have a bigger picture of why this is happening. You start to have this soul understanding. You start to honor their purpose and their soul journey, as well as honoring your own purpose, still living life. And then you get into the crown chakra point of view, where you're really seeing that bigger picture of what birth and death and the life, the journey of life is. And when you get to that point, you can see into soul contracts. You can start to understand there was this soul agreement between you and the person that transitioned that, you know, they needed to go for their own soul journey, but it also helps you in your own. And then from there, you step into your solar plexus, which is your personal power. So you re-identify through all of these processes of your chakras and emotions and everything into your own soul purpose and to truly be able to step into, okay, I'm a survivor of this, but I'm also here and I have work still to be done. And so once I got into my solar plexus, I could truly identify that um, when he transitioned, that was a big part of my agreement to continue so that I can now help people be conscious grievers and to step into the Reiki practice and become a healing practitioner and all of that. But there was still the extra additional part of I needed to have the diagnosis to then really get me there. And so, yeah. And you can use this in the sense of grief even with illnesses, not just the loss of someone, it's a loss of identity, it's the loss of life and love and all the things. But it really is a cycle of going through our chakras that help us to re-identify ourselves in each one.
I love that. I love that well, one, that it came through as a very powerful download of like, this is how you heal yourself. And then it gave you the roadmap to help others in their journey and their process. And that, it's so often, especially as healers, that we have to be pushed to our limit in our own healing journey and going, I'm willing and ready to surrender to what needs to come through and then do the work. And that's what I feel here you exemplifying. And I'm wondering, like, at where is the timeline in you healing your MS as you're going through this conscious grief, really technique modality?
Mm-hmm. I believe when that showed up, because MS is all about the brain, that's when I realized the stubbornness that I had and still I want control. And that's how I see that. Like, no, you're not going to have control. You don't have control like that. Not to the degree that we all think we do. Like we can control the outcome. No, you have to surrender to the outcome. And you have to surrender to, like, even when we're like manifesting and we're growing, we're developing as people or whatever it is, there's still a level of surrendering that we have to do. There's still this soul purpose. And if we step off of it, which is what I was doing, I was stepping off of and out of my purpose. It's like, well, then here, let's throw that in there and we're going to realign you. And at that point, then that's when I was like, okay, I fully surrender. So now when certain things come into my life, one, I've learned how to deal with them. So even if I have an emotional response to it, or I'm feeling sad or depleted or any of that, it's my processes are a lot fast, like I'm faster with it. But also I'm like, okay, I see it for what it is and I'm willing to take that on. Like I just have like my saying is if I planned it there, I can heal through it here. And I live by that.
I'm like, say it again, because that's a good one. I love this one.
If I could plan it there, then I can heal through it here. Meaning if I planned it on a soul level, I know then I have the strength to heal that through that and work through that, because otherwise I wouldn't have planned it, you know? And so I walk that walk, and that's just where I'm at now. Now, 10, 15 years ago, I wouldn't have thought like that, but I do now, and it's actually really powerful.
Well, it always gives me goosebumps every time I hear you say it. I'm like, hell yeah. Like, of course, that's the way it works. Right. And so, and I love that real beautiful crown chakra point of view. And I think that's where the ultimate healing is taking place, whether it's in this conscious grieving process or any other area of our life of going, look, we've planned it out this way. Like, and I have seen you walk through this availability of surrender. Like I remember you when you started with us when we were Reiki Cafe University of like you were doing all of the things. You were trying to develop your in-person practice and you were doing our coursework and you were working a full-time job and like then you started taking on the apprenticeship role and like it was so full and I was like I don't know how you're doing it but you're doing it. I would love for you to tell us how the Reiki led you into that journey process and when like the shamanic stuff started coming on board. Like tell us a little bit about how you found me and how that journey has gone.
Okay. So immediately when I was diagnosed, so this is how this all started, was I went to the doctor, didn't like what he had to throw his prognosis and everything for me. And I was like, no, that doesn't work. So I went on the hunt of self-healing, and then Reiki came into my life. Like I heard it. A friend of mine, she said, I think I'm gonna go have a Reiki session. I'm like, what is that? And then the moment heard it, I was like, that's it. That's it. I was like, everything in me sparked up. And so I found a Reiki master. And this was like around, I think we were in COVID, so 2020-ish. And so I did my level 1 and 2 immediately and master. So I was at a master level within 6 to 7 months. It was really, really fast, but I was guided to move very fast. And so the moment my agenda, my whole purpose was for self-healing. Had no clue all of this. You know, I always say Reiki has its own agenda. So whatever your purpose is with Reiki, it's going to show up for you. Whether that's for you to do self-healing, whether that's to heal your family or to have your own practice, it's already in alignment. It's just out there just waiting. And so I remember one of my first clients, I was doing some work on her and I started pulling out all this stuff. And I was like, what am I doing? What am I seeing? And then when I went to the master teacher at the time, she's a beautiful woman and is amazing at what she does, but her approach with it was a lot different. And so I was like, okay, you know, and so one day I was on Facebook and you just showed up. You were there and there was some webinar you were doing and you were answering all the questions that I had. And we hadn't even talked. You were just having a conversation and talking about energy releasing and stuff and whatever. And so I messaged you. I was like, hey, what do you got going on? Because you're answering my questions. And you said, actually, we're getting ready to start this program. And it was the first one I think you did. And I wasn't ready right then. And I joined the next one, which was the SRPT program at the time.
Yeah.
And so the
So
SR,
this was our shamanic Reiki
yes,
practitioner training that was before we developed Soul Rising, we had this 6 month program that you had to be at least a level 2 for. This wasn't a self-healing program. It included self-healing, but really it was meant to become a practitioner.
yeah,
And and that's why we needed to kind of revamp it into these 4 month programs called Soul Rising. But yeah, you totally stepped in and you just embraced all of it.
all of it. It lit me up from the inside out. I had a soul remembering of myself and who we are, and energetically, we are this energy. We all have the ability to step into this version of ourselves. Everyone does. We're all intuitive. We all can connect to nature. We can all be, connecting to our energy bodies. It's just we go through this. like soul amnesia when we come into life. And with that, we forget everything and we have to remember who we are. And it really is an invitation for people to go and connect and to remember that we are expansive beings and bodies. And so when I was going through the program, that's exactly what I was doing and learning how to do a lot of my personal healing. And so that's when a lot of my awarenesses and my ahas of self came through, was like, oh, you are I was my own enemy, my own saboteur, and my own, like the victim of things. And here I felt so empowered in my walk, yet not really recognizing that I was the one that was sabotaging my own self, but yet very successful in things I did. But it was more my personal talk and personal relationships I was struggling in that I ended up being able to heal and work with. Um, so towards the end of that graduation, then you and Isabel messaged me and called me and said, "Hey, we want to offer you this apprenticeship," which then I did that for the next, what, year and a half, I think.
Yeah, it was a
Yeah, because then
whirlwind.
I went through the advanced, I went through the coaching program. So I ended up taking them all. And then at the end of that one, you and I were in Costa Rica, and you're like, okay, how about we get you on the books? And now you come on as a rising instructor. And yeah, here
Yeah,
I
and
am.
here we are. Well, and
Here we are.
I love your story. Like when I think back from the beginning, like it seemed so natural to you. Like like I feel like you're born a mystic. Like the spiritual gifts that were coming on board for you during that time seemed so natural, seemed so easy, seemed so like in alignment. And it's not like we have a small team. It's just the three of us. It's not like I'm go through a lot of apprentices. It's very much like divine picks them out and places them in front of me and like, here's the next teacher. And I'm like, yeah, this will be good. Right. And I just remember you like being in class, our first shamanic journey class, and there being about probably 10 students in that class. And it just being this huge deep dive into like what your journey was like for the very first one was something I would normally see in advanced class. And I was like, oh, this
That's
is
exactly
Chantel.
what you said. You're like, wow, that's really advanced work. Because I was like eaten by my power animal, like this whole thing occurred, and you're like, wow, that's really advanced work. And it was like, oh, okay. Because I at that point had no idea like what it was I was actually doing and seeing. I just knew that I had this huge snake eating me, and the journey I had to do to go through its belly, which was literally like energetically and everything was my death and rebirth.
Exactly.
And that's what it was. And so I just didn't know it going into it. But the more I learned and practiced and now understand, it's like, wow, yeah, very profound. And literally, it was just the push of like, yeah, divine intervention. This is it. Go do it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so let us know about how you went from juggling all of these things. Like you were doing the apprenticeship, you were taking all of these courses, you were working full time, you were still like wife and grandma and all of these things. Like your life was really full. And when did you say, I'm pivoting into really embodying teacher and practitioner? And tell us about that journey of how you started your in-person practice.
Okay, so the in-person practice I started, I think I came to you and I was already in person, but it continued to grow. So what ended up happening at some point is I ended up getting my shop. I have my home-based room and I do healing here, but I actually have a space at our spiritual center here in my town. And so I was guided there because I did a women's retreat, and a woman was like, you need to meet this lady and go and, check it out. And I did. And so ever since then, I've just been guided to continue to build myself and to work with people. And so I enjoy doing in person. I like that hands-on with people, and I like to add in different modalities and sound tools and the drumming and all the stuff, but it's really having that heart to heart connection with people that I enjoy. And then also being like I do distance and everything too, and which I find so profound because in person versus, and it's all shamanic work. But when you do distance shamanic journey, it's like I journey through their body and their energy field, and I can tap in really fast. So it's like almost a completely different session than in person, yet I'm still doing that work. But it's like you've got the hands-on energy, which is, I don't know, it's just interesting. But yeah, I just love it. It just really is. It's just what I'm here to do.
Yeah. But tell me a little bit about what it took to get you to quit your job, your day job.
Oh man, that's still even in. So my son, he was born deaf, the one that transitioned, and literally he was like my stage in life. So he was born deaf, and learned ASL and became a certified interpreter to learn to communicate with him, but it became my career, and it's just an amazing career, an amazing job to have as well, to be able to be in service to the deaf community. And I worked with deaf children, and so as an educational interpreter. And one was having a struggle of, am I releasing my son if I release my job? So there was a lot of emotion with it. Plus, and it's how can I felt like I was abandoning the deaf community if I was to fully embody this version of my life. And so I took some time off, and then officially I resigned from my position. And then my boss was like, you don't actually have to resign. And this is current. You do not have to resign. Just take jobs here and there. And I was like, oh. And then she goes, but I'm interested in what you do. So she ended up becoming a client. I work with her weekly now.
I love that.
And and my position's just there, and I'm like, okay. And at some point I'll figure that part out. I just think that it's an opening for me to somehow envelop and work with the deaf community in this as well. But for now, I'm just embracing that I'm growing in my business and where I'm at, and here and with you guys and online and everything. So I'm just kind of in the flow of what is, which is really nice.
Yeah.
And yeah, because even right now, it's like December is kind of, I'm all my messages, and I'm a reader, so I do tarot and oracle readings, and which has been a huge part of my practice as well. And so I'll do readings for myself, and it's like, why are things slowing down? It's like, because it's time for you to kind of get 2025 figured out. Like, set up your programs and what you want to do for 2025. Take this time, this month. And I'm like, oh, okay. And so that's what I'm doing. I'm listening. I listen to my intuition, and that's huge.
Well, and it's
Slowing,
the perfect time of the year to do that,
it
right? Like
is.
this is the time of year to slow down and self-reflect as we go into solstice energy. Like this is the darkest days. So like that sounds like, of course you're supposed to slow down. And I've also seen your business grow incredibly,
Mhm.
like I know that you aren't really doing any more of the ASL work, but I also see like you're juggling what you're doing with our students here at Moon Rising Shamanic Institute with your in-person practice and all of the new moon ceremonies and full moon ceremonies and other workshops that are going on in the spiritual center. And like, you've got it going on. And I just am like, so it's been such a beautiful thing to witness, not only someone who has the capacity to grow in an in-person practice, but online. And I feel like that's so rare for someone to do both. And you've got it.
Yeah. Actually, as you mentioned that, like, yeah, so I do the new moon ceremonies. I facilitate a conscious grieving group. I have my in-person practice. I'm a part of the team there, so I'm one of the primary people that makes sure that things are working and in order. And I'm getting ready to activate like some DIYs once a month. So doing personal spiritual kits where people come in and they learn and they build and create, whether it's learning how to smudge themselves and they have a burning bowl, whether it's creating a money bowl. So there's different things every month. February I'm going to do pendulum dowsing. So I just allow the creative juices to flow, and that space gives me the in-person ability to do it. Because I would love to do that online, but it's kind of hard when you have things you got to purchase. But just the teachings. And so I like both of it.
Yeah, I love that. And so if you're listening, know that Chantel, yes, she's taking clients. I think I can safely say that. So if you want to reach out and have a reading. One of my favorite readings from Shantel is not only the Oracle, because oh my gosh, she's so powerful, but also the readings for your archetypes. That is super, super cool. I love Chantel's work with the archetypes. It really was profound healing for myself and my own healing journey over the last like 6-9 months. Like having that reading done is still informing me. It's still informing me in my
Yeah.
healing journey. So I love that. So don't forget about that too. And know that she is on our main team to support us in our soul rising shamanic Reiki self-healing program. So that's starting January 26th. And that really is going through this 4-month program to not only do the deep personal self-healing work. And so she's our grief expert, obviously. And she's also so good on those lots of different emotional and spiritual levels of how to really find your own personal flow and develop your own personal practice and find your own personal self-care rituals. She's our gal. And with that, in that program, we're also learning how to shamanic journey, and she's super solid there as well. And so I'm like, we're so grateful that Chantel's on the team and that she gets to share her beautiful gifts as a mystic. That's what we kind of call her over here at Moon Rising Shamanic Institute, is that Chantel is our mystic. And it really is because that there's such a clarity of channeling and how she moves through that energy, whether it's with a deck or with like just downloads and like all of the things. So it's just been such a beautiful journey to have witnessed Chantel over the last probably like 3 years now.
I'd say a little more than that, but yeah.
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 Like it's been awesome. It's been an awesome ride, and just cannot wait to see what is coming on your horizon. Knowing that like you're in that self-reflective phase, anything coming through as of yet of what 2025 is going to look for you?
There's a few things. I'm looking at really like putting together an in-person program of where I want to bring together a workshop for people that are going to kind of encompass all the things that I've learned, but really embodying the divine feminine and really diving deep into our healing, but in a fun, tangible way too, of connecting with different things, going out into nature, doing stuff like that. So there are some things coming up that I'm loving and connecting with, and I feel like I'm going to do some connections with people in town that I'm looking forward to.
Yeah.
Camaraderie and yeah, collaboration.
I love it. I love it. So as what we ask all of our guests here on our Wisdom Rising podcast, what's the best way for people to connect with you if they would like to book a session or work with you? What does that look like?
Well, I'm like working on getting a website up. So everything I've done too is all word of mouth, which is really interesting. But you can email me at reiki7pointhealing@gmail.com. And from there, you'll get my personal contact info. I do everything like that right now. You can DM me, personally message me too. And so, but email right now is probably the best bet.
Yeah.
Unless I get you a link and then you can attach that and then everyone can go through. But here at Moon Rising, connect with me here.
Yeah.
Like join us, come watch us, be a part of it. We have so many things going on that we offer, and I love it. I love what we have what we're doing, what we offer, all of the freebies, and then what we do in class is just so profound.
Mm-hmm.
It really is. I have people in my local community they started as my clients, became my students, and now they're my students here at Moon Rising and Soul Rising, and I absolutely love it. And watching them change and grow and evolve in their own walk, it's pretty amazing. It really is so powerful.
It is. It's so powerful. It's so
It
powerful.
is.
So
And
I
we get
love
to
that.
just celebrate them. And that's what I love. That's probably my most favorite thing is celebrating them in their journey work and watching them come like fully bloom into their own self and remember who they are. It's just like, yeah, it's so juicy and so sweet and just like, yeah, empowering.
I love it. I love it. Well, thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for being a part of Moon Rising Shamanic Institute. I know it's all been divinely directed.
Yeah.
It all has been definitely divinely directed. I feel like we have a sisterhood here going on. And I love when we met for the first time in Costa Rica back in January. And then we saw each other again, all three of us as a team last summer of 2024. And it's amazing to me to watch our group, our little team go from like we see each other every single week on Zoom calls, right? Like
Yeah.
we're zooming it and we're totally zooming it. And then when we get together and be like, oh yeah, it's totally the same energy. Like it's so fun to witness that, the electronic isn't something that is getting in the way. It's actually a way to feel in deeper. Like
Yeah.
I love it. I love that this is a possibility in our culture and our society now that we have access. We have access. Like there's a lot of people who think that like, oh, we can't have that deep spiritual connection in an online space. And I'm like, oh yeah, you can. Like
Oh,
I
yeah.
remember you totally can. Like I feel like when I see you guys in person, it's like you're the exact same person I expected. Like there is no mystery or mask. It's like, yeah, these are my besties. These are my besties. And there's no surprises when we get together. It's like I love traveling to your house over the summer and really getting to know you and your partner and your family and the space at the spiritual center there. And it's just like it's so real. Like, and I feel like I wish people would really trust that. Like what you see on camera, what you hear in our podcast, it's the real us. It's like, honestly, oftentimes I feel like this is the most authentic version of us because we get to share from our heart, from our soul, our stories, our wisdom. And we just want to say thank you so much for listening because we wouldn't be where we are if it wasn't for you. We just hit 13,000 subscribers on our YouTube channel. We're over 120,000 downloads on our podcast. And I just got a memory show up on my phone from 3 years ago saying we hit 7,000 on the podcast. And now I'm like, oh, wow, we do that like often. 7,000 is not a big number, but 120,000 is. And so I just want to say thank you so much for listening. Thank you so much for participating. And we invite you to take the next step on your journey. Join us for Soul Rising and really allow yourself to surrender the way Chantel did and trust that this is divinely orchestrated, that you can trust your calling. If you have the calling, listen to it, jump on a call with us. We're happy to support you in those next healing steps. So thank you so much, Chantel.
Absolutely. It's been a beautiful journey for sure. And I totally invite everyone come and join us. We create beautiful energy here. We create sacred spaces here. And you can definitely step in and surrender and find the true you and reconnect to you. And it's an invitation. Come and join us. So absolutely.
Until next time, may you awaken to the whispers of wisdom rising from within.